Hello, friends. We're here with a special friend, Ross Brubeck. Ross, welcome to Monks and Punks.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Ross is a courageous friend, that means to say a Quaker, who participated in last year's Quaker Walk from Flushing, Queens, all the way to Washington, D.C. with Max Goodman and other New York City friends. But now Ross is doing something even more courageous and amazing. You are in the middle of this month, I believe, if God wills it, uh, if the schedule continues to be planned out accordingly, in about a week, you'll be walking across America um, to points unknown, witnessing and testifying. And so we have a lot to talk about because there's a lot of unknowns here. And it's so beautiful that you're embracing the unknown. And I want to support you in any way I can. So welcome to Monks and Punks. I think you are definitely both.
Yeah,
Tell
thanks.
us more. First, let's start with Quaker Walk last year. Did you get lots of blisters?
Too many. Yeah, I learned a lot about what it was to take care of myself physically on that walk. What it meant to have the right shoes and what it meant to have the right amount of rest. What it meant to walk properly. It's something you do all day, every day for your entire life, but you don't really have a chance to understand the importance of proper walking mechanics, as it were, until you're walking 325 miles, I believe it was, from Flushing to D.C. And yeah, the walk to Washington
325.
was 325. Yeah,
Yeah.
325 give or take. We also paddled 5 miles down the Susquehanna River in a fleet of canoes that was loaned to us by the BYM, Baltimore Yearly Meeting Summer Camp Program, which is a real joy for me and Max as well. We were both former camp attendees, campers. So there's a good chance we were sitting in canoes that we had paddled once 25 years earlier too.
That reunited with your old canoes,
Yeah.
canoodling with your canoe.
So the intention of the walk was multifold. The main directive was to walk a copy of the Flushing Remonstrance from Flushing, Queens, the place that it was drafted and signed, to Washington, D.C. to hand deliver it to members of Congress. The Flushing Remonstrance is the first, I would say, codified document that delineates a separation between church and state in the United States. It was written on behalf of Quakers in the 17th century. By their neighbors in Flushing, Quakers who were facing persecution at the hands of local authorities there. And we carry this document as a symbol of solidarity shown to Quakers in years past, and something that had laid the foundation, the groundwork for a very successful society of individuals. Quakers now are incredibly successful as a group, small as they might be. There's an outsized influence that Quakers have had throughout United States history. By no by no coincidence, there is the Quaker Lobby, Friends Committee for National Legislation, is across the street from the Hart Building, which is the congressional building in Washington, D.C. So at this point, we are in a position of relative power, or at least influence. And it was our intention to recognize that potential for influence as a way to, guide national politics. There was as it existed in 2025, there was a huge crisis, concerning ICE and migrants in the United States, particularly when it came to ICE's potential intrusion on houses of worship. This is something that the Quaker community rallied around very, very strongly in 2025, to prevent the intrusion of officers of the quote unquote law into the sanctuary of our worshipful spaces. So we walked with the original Flushing Remonstrance, or at least a copy of it, and along the way we drafted a new updated version to include language that professed our solidarity with migrants in the United States. and also
That's
asserted
right.
that there was a primacy of law that the federal government must abide by. Um,
Right. And
yep.
viewers of my YouTube channel might remember Max Goodman has been on the YouTube channel reading that text, the new Flushing Remonstrance that you guys, or the new 2025 Remonstrance from Flushing to DC that you all drafted together, and so that we had that on the YouTube channel before. So you're going to be on the YouTube channel as well as the podcast here, Ross. So
Yeah, and we're calling it the Walker's Remonstrance, and it's up on the website for the walk, which is at quakerwalk.org.
oh, great. So quakerwalk.org is going to be your website for this new walk that you're also doing.
Yeah,
And
it serves as the landing page for the kind of the three distinct projects that have emerged from the initial leading of the Walk to Washington last May. So the Walk to Washington was our first period of public witness. Later on that year in October, I walked again with a few friends along the same route to revisit the same friends that had supported us, the same meeting houses that had supported us in May. I walked with a bunch of camera equipment this time with the intention of sitting with friends in various periods of worshipful sharing, such that I could record the living memory of Quaker activism. I was specifically focused on elder friends who had spent, decades upon decades of their time working for peace, and in the great Quaker tradition of publishing truth. The intention there is to take these memories and share them freely with the world. So that's
yeah.
also on our website. And then the third project, which is what you
Wait,
mentioned
wait,
earlier.
wait, one at a time, because
Sure.
you gotta let me affirm you and tell the world what Ross is talking about. That second piece, he's talking about his own YouTube channel, which is Quaker elders who are really sparkly and bright and creative and are full of these great recent memories or past memories, just great storytellers. And it's good video editing, and I really recommend this channel. So tell us, what is the name of your YouTube channel?
Walk to Washington. Yeah, thanks for metering me there. I tend to really just plow through things sometimes. That's
But wait,
it's
But what is the name? What is the name of the series of the? There's another name I'm trying to remember. That's the name of
yeah,
the Quaker. Yeah.
PeaceWord. Peace, WARD, as in oriented towards peace or headed towards peace. So that's also on the YouTube channel, which is Walk to Washington.
Okay, great. So the Walk to Washington is the YouTube channel, but the Quakers Elder series is called PeaceWord.
That's correct.
Great. Well, I've really enjoyed a whole bunch of PeaceWord videos that I've seen, and I'm a subscriber, and I highly recommend all spiritual people, Quakers, Friends, Buddhists, radicals, agnostics, atheists, DSA people. You all really need to check out PeaceWord, Walk to Washington on YouTube. And Ross is not only a budding long distance political activist walker, but a pretty darn good video editor. And you really let people get to it, and I like your editing style. It's not too choppy. It's not too, people are always doing the jump cut and doing like chopping stuff up, but you do a long cut. So I like the way you cut.
Yeah, there's slow contemplative videos. And I really would like to lean into that as a form of media. I'm quite moved by a certain era of film and filmmaking that allows space for the message of the story to breathe.
Yeah.
And much like the walking work, it is also an invitation to anyone who encounters it to slow down and take some time, make some space in your life to receive wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great talking to a fellow friend, because just when we started this video interview today, this podcast interview today, I was like, I'm with a fellow friend now. I've got to start with silence. And so we had our moment of silence before we hit record, and it really does help. It really does help ground you, get you out of being any other character than yourself. And, sometimes with this podcast, I think I've got to be the entertainer guy or the host guy or the performer guy. But really, when I'm with a friend, then I just got to be, first of all, slow down. Like you said, slow down. So what is the third part of the website that you wanted to talk about?
The third part, the upcoming project is the National Peace Walk, and
Right,
that
that's the big variable.
that's the big boy, yeah. And yeah, as far as well, as far as prepositions go, it would be amazing if I made it across America. Like it would be something special if the entirety of the continent was traversable. But walking throughout the United States is, I think, maybe my goal at this point. Especially considering the fact that there are so many communities that I want to visit that aren't, on a straight line across the United States. And I am hoping to use this as an opportunity, this time as a period of opportunity to visit as much of Quaker society as I can. But right. Quaker society tends to get pretty spotty in certain areas. Like there's an enormous amount of Quaker meeting houses between Maine and Richmond. But south of there, not so much. I mean, there's a similar population of Quakers that stretch across North Carolina, but between there and, let's say, Illinois or Indiana or Ohio, still quite spotty. So I'm seeing this as an opportunity to engage in the tradition of intervisitation, and to take part in the tradition of intervisitation by foot, which is something that has tied Quaker society together for a long time, although that has not been the case over the past century, especially since the advent of the automobile. But in the interim periods, I am looking forward to the opportunity to meet with other communities, and that's communities of faith, of course, communities of action, however they exist, communities of intention as well, folks who are living intentionally as self-supporting groups that are aware of a necessity for community, aware of a primacy of community, especially in a time when there is less and less of a civic structure to support our needs, and to provide safety and security. I think as time goes on, the perhaps the danger or risk of simply, I would say as time goes on, the act of survival is going to be much more dependent on folks who are connected with each other in an intimate way. The interconnectivity of communities is, I'm hoping, going to be something that more and more people are aware of the need to foster. So all of that is to say, I'm looking for folks to meet with that are living with this understanding that community is a way towards God, however you would like to define God. But if there are many people nowadays that are understanding that there is something that exists, that has existed longer than any government or any state. And sometimes this longevity is supported by faith, it's supported by religious structures, but more often than not, it's simply supported by folks who recognize a kind of interconnectivity in the world.
Yeah, when you mention survival, and I know you've got to think about logistics and reality and survival and money and support and food, but there's something I wanted to share with you from my readings in the historical Jesus topic that I think could actually bolster your faith in yourself and your project and your mission and your calling and your surrender to the mission, this beautiful surrender to higher power, God, Dharma, whatever it is, this calling. Because in John Dominic Crozon's book, Jesus, a Revolutionary Biography, I don't know if you've read it, but it's really good. I had it for like 20 years, and I finally read it, and I'm like, wow, this book is so good. Um, but you know how Jesus in the Gospels says, "Go out, but don't take a bag. You can have a staff, but don't even take an extra pair of sandals. Don't even take a bag." So Crozon's interpretation of that is Jesus was instructing the disciples and the apostles and the followers to practice his practice of doing work, of changing the world and healing the sick and exorcising the demons, of whatever demons are out there, trauma, violence, but living off of the generosity of the people. If you do the work, then you don't need a bag, you don't need a knapsack, because you will be fed by the people, by the peasantry that you are living among. And that's so high risk, to think like, is it going to work? But that's what Jesus says, to go out and do it. This is how we're going to change the world. This is our movement. We go village to village, house to house, and we heal the sick there. So I think that that's why I'm in love with this project and want to support, want to amplify you and support you and affirm you and get it out into the world, because it seems like you are really the world is desperate for voices of peace, voices of mission, voices of ministry. I think Quakers are on an uptick. I think the world really needs Quakers, really needs friends. The message of nonviolence is really needed today, or this country is in a really bizarre form of corporate hyper-capitalist fascism. I've just dropped off. I'm here today in downtown Wilkes-Barre. I just dropped off my friend Jimmy here. His house just got broken into. He was, in the middle of the night when he was in the house, and poverty and insanity just seems to be right at his doorstep down here. I even locked my van doors before starting the podcast because, I'm paranoid now about Wilkes-Barre based on what happened to my friend. And so, the world really needs you, Ross, and it needs revolutionary voices of peace and nonviolence. And that's, I think what you're doing with this walk is very much in keeping with the original call to the apostles and to the disciples. What do you think?
Yeah, thank you. In a sense, I'm not traveling with a bag. I will have a pack, and I will have a couple changes of clothes, and it will have, some, it will have my computer, and it'll have my food and supplies and whatnot. But I'm not traveling with a bag of let's say money, so to speak. I'm not doing this because I have a tremendous amount of money saved up. I'm not doing this because I have financial security. I don't have savings. I didn't, I've never worked a job that has afforded me enough time to really breathe in my life and to really pursue maybe the finer aspects of the things that I considered myself to be good at. Everything that I've done in terms of art making has had to exist within the small margins of space that I can carve out in between selling my time, and not just my time, but my body, my physical form, my physical health, and my mental health and social health. And that amount of space that our United States brand of survival has afforded me has been really, really slim. And getting to the point in my life now, I'm going to be turning 40 in 5 months. Getting to the point that I'm at now.
Where do you plan to be for that big B day?
I don't know. I could be anywhere. I'm thinking Philadelphia, which probably mean I'd fly back, but that's mostly because that's where most of my friends live still, is Philadelphia. But I'll
Yeah.
keep you in the loop.
Okay.
And it
Maybe my band White Collar Crime can come and play the party.
that'd be great. Um, the point is that like I'm not traveling with much. I because I don't, first of all, have much to begin with. But what that has uh, afforded me is space to consider kind of crazy ideas like this.
Yeah.
And there
Exactly.
aren't times when I lie awake at night thinking that this might be the stupidest fucking idea I've ever had in my life. But I have I have faith. I've been bolstered by a huge amount of faith that has come in the wake of the work that we've done since last May. Seeing how how eager folks are to support leadings like this, and
Yeah.
how simple it is too. Like it's really like all I really need is a place to sleep and something to eat at the end of the day,
Yeah.
and people to talk to. And
And I liked the fact that the Associated Press reporter came and walked with you and didn't just
mm,
report on it, but was in it for a minute, and that was kind of cool.
yeah, it really helped to. I think it helped to um, sort of orient him towards what we were doing. Luis Henao is his name, and he had some skepticism about the story as he was beginning to walk with us, mostly because it wasn't such a huge group. We were walking to Princeton that night or that afternoon, and he I think had in his mind that it would be an enormous crowd of people, in like a big mass mobilization, very photogenic, so on and so forth. But as the day went on, we eventually reached Princeton, and it was, I would say, about five of us, and we sat for a meeting for worship, and had the rare moment that we all wait for, which is a visitation of spirit in the meeting house. And he at the rise of meeting, had tears in his eyes, and was like, I I get it now, and I want to do your story justice. Um, and it's this personal contact with the work that I hope to share with people as much as I can. The bottleneck there being that I'm only one person who can only be in one place at one time. But I really do think that this is something, this being walking long distance is something that resonates very deeply with people, and that the able-bodied can do to a certain extent, and should do if there's a leading to, because there's a connection to self-actualization that is really hard to recognize when we are denied the option to carry ourselves from one place to another under our own power. And we're denied this by a lot of different means, not least of which is the fact that our entire country, the entire United States, is built out for private vehicle travel.
Yeah.
And in traveling in a car, you are still, you're sitting, which is really not a very healthy position to be in for very long. You are paying to do so. You are paying car insurance and possibly the auto lien, and also possibly traffic tickets if you get them, or tolls,
Yeah.
gasoline, and moreover, you're being more and more surveilled the entire time.
Yeah.
Whether it's through police surveillance in their cars, or through flock cameras, which are now just absolutely littering the country.
What
And
cameras?
flock cameras. Are you familiar with the flock surveillance system?
No, tell us about what a flock camera is, because I was
Oh
going to
God,
chime in and say I'm getting a ton of robo tickets in New York City because I like to
yeah.
drive 36 miles an hour sometimes, which is now an automatic ticket because it's 25 miles an hour
Mm.
everywhere. So Sophie is always racking up the tickets and telling me, I can't believe it, Sander, you got another robo ticket. But what is a
Yeah.
flock camera, Ross?
Well,
Educate us.
God willing, this podcast will be out of date very soon because hopefully they won't be around for very much longer. But like it's right now, it's a private company that has set up a network of AI connected surveillance cameras throughout the country and has given basically free access to law enforcement throughout the country to this system, which monitors vehicle travel by license plate. Um, and
Ah,
they are being erected without any oversight in any jurisdiction, or with minimal oversight, perhaps. But they've just sprouted throughout the country and are representing what I see to be the first really huge push towards um, national surveillance, and not just national surveillance, but national automated surveillance, mediated or supported by artificial intelligence. Um, so, as time goes on,
wait,
there's less and less privacy that's available to us because of our private vehicles, quote unquote private
yeah,
vehicles.
right.
Um, and then, like one last point here is that there is, from what I understand, legislation being introduced such that would require all newly manufactured vehicles to have built-in surveillance systems, essentially within the interior of the car. So audio and video monitoring, ostensibly for the sake of reducing impaired driving, based on something about your biometrics. But
Mm.
it's a flimsy veneer for what would be the last sort of vestige of our privacy, um, in our vehicles. So all of that is to say, I mean, that was a little bit of a soapbox, but like the thing is that
No, no,
like,
it's really important what you're talking about. You're talking a little bit about urban planning and stroads. The City Nerd YouTube channel has taught me what a stroad is. It's when you design a street that's also a road and it has no sidewalks and it's like not walkable. And so this guy at City Nerd is always rating cities like as what is the least walkable city. Like Murfreesboro, Tennessee is like really, really bad for walkability. So try to avoid Murfreesboro,
oh my
Tennessee.
God,
Yeah,
I'll do my
even in
best.
Scranton. Yeah, even in Scranton here, sometimes the sidewalk disappears, and people are just walking on the grass or something. So
Yeah, so we're denied this fundamental function in our lives, which is carrying ourselves one place to another, like conveying ourselves through our own 2 feet, which is sort of where I was at before that tangent. And it's, for me, the experience of walking between DC or New York and DC twice has been enormously empowering because it's given me an understanding of what it is to travel, in a way that is quite ceremonial. Um, and there's a laundry list of things I could go down, of a laundry list of technologies and technological inter innovations slash interventions that have sub short circuited our need, or our how do I put this? They've short circuited our ceremonies in our lives. The
hmm.
ceremonies being something that is like highly intentional, highly mindful, um, and spiritually expansive, and grounding as well. Um, and there's nothing more grounding than like stepping on the ground repeatedly. you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I have two
so
questions for you coming up next that I've been meaning to ask you. So I think I'm going to try to put two questions out there, and you can answer them in whatever order you like. I want to ask you, what was your reaction to the Buddhist walk? Did you find any similarities between the group of Buddhists who walked from Fort Worth, Texas to Washington, D.C., and got a great public reaction? And my second question is, where are you walking to first?
the Buddhist monks walking was so inspiring. It was inspiring on so many levels to me. First of all, to see the tradition of walking inhabited by other faiths and faith traditions. um, the amount of attention that they got on a national level was yeah, really heartening. Knowing how long that action is going to resonate in national consciousness is
Hmm.
something that has given me um, courage to continue the work that I'm doing. Knowing that people now will recognize the act of walking as being um, deeply important. Um, Deeply important for
And
so many reasons.
similar to the Buddhists, are you hoping people will walk with you?
I am. I right now I'm doing myself and others a favor by saying that if and when companions join me, I would accept companions up to like maybe 4 or 5 walkers. And I'm only doing that because I am doing this all by myself. Like
Yeah.
one hidden part of the story is that this walk itself is happening the way that it's happening because of um how how busy everyone was after the walk to Washington. It was 4 of us, 5 of us initially, planning it. So that's myself, Max Goodman, Lena Parker, and just Hobbs Pfeiffer, and we just had kind of lightning in a bottle there for a minute because everyone had time in their schedules, either by being unemployed or underemployed. Um, and once the trip was over, folks had to find ways to make their lives work again. Um,
Yeah.
so, some folks went off to schools, others found full time employment. I came back to New York with this sense that the work wasn't finished, and not moreover that really um, I couldn't really subject myself to anything that wasn't really aligned with my values. I couldn't sell my time for something that didn't feel as fulfilling as the walk to Washington. And fortunately, I have ways of making money here and there, and I was able
Mhm.
to grab a couple jobs. I'm a plasterer and
Yeah, you're a
construction. I do
talented plaster
construction,
guy. I know. I've seen your pictures. Yes.
so that's something that that's a skill set that I'm equipped with, and if sometimes I will do quite well. And fortunately, I was able to find some jobs that have supported me for that from that. But yeah, the point is that the reason that I'm walking alone right now is because the the kind of requisite amount of support that is needed to make something large happen again didn't emerge from Brooklyn Monthly Meeting, which is the meeting I've been attending for about 2 years now. Brooklyn Monthly Meeting. In the wake of the walk to Washington, there was a big discussion about what it was to support public witness at Brooklyn Meeting, and that discussion took precedent over rolling that energy into another walk this year. Um, and God willing, there will be another mass march. There will be another large event that welcomes many friends in, and is a big raucous pageant, and gets national attention and really galvanizes folks towards community
Yeah.
towards support. But for the time being, I'm organizing this by myself, and
Got you.
sub- I don't want to I don't want to get too I don't want to bite off more than I can chew. So if I were to say let's walk with 20 people, um, that would expose 20 people to the risk of walking on stroads, and in places that don't have adequate footpaths and all of that. And until that support emerges, I am keeping this a much more constrained uh, action. But that is not to say I'm not seeking that support. I do think that
Yeah.
this type of work has the potential to change lives in ways that aren't immediately apparent. That are well, they are certainly immediately apparent, but there is like with the monks, a lasting resonant effect that will kind of paradoxically grow over time. And as an individual, I can do this, you know, indefinitely, which is the idea. But the idea is also to find companions up to a point that it feels responsible. So that answers
No,
your
I just
first
got to be
question.
provocative. I got to be provocative and say, are you dead set on 4 to 5 companions, but not 6? You can't have 6.
I'm flexible. I need to be flexible. I stretch every night
Yeah.
for my own health. So I've
Good,
learned
good, good, good.
I've learned to bend instead of break. So yeah, 6. What the hell?
I wonder if Jesus ever said, like, I can have 4 or 5 companions, but definitely not 12.
Yeah. Well, you should have probably stopped at 11. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But the
And
second
then
question is, where am I going? Right?
yes, thank you for following up on the second question. Where to first?
DC again. I'm DC by way of Philadelphia and Baltimore.
Great.
So I'll be passing through Philly between the 20th and the 23rd of May. There's a walk I mean, to speak of emergent support, friends at Media Friends meeting have come through in a big way and helped to organize a walk on the 23rd from Arch Street meeting in downtown Philly to Media Friends meeting. So that'll be leaving from Arch Street on the 23rd at 11
Right.
o'clock.
And for people who don't know Pennsylvania, the media is not the corporate media, but is a small town in Pennsylvania called Media.
Correct.
Which is where activists broke into the local FBI office and exposed COINTELPRO, talking about privacy constraints and the deep state a little bit. But that's why Media, Pennsylvania is most famous. And I think I've met some friends, Quakers from Media, who have said, "Oh yeah, we know all about COINTELPRO."
Love that.
Yeah.
So that's happening. And then I'll be at Friends of Meeting of Washington on the 7th. I'm actually getting to DC on the 1st-ish, but I'm going to take a week to rest and to do some video editing.
1st of June.
1st of June, that's correct. Yeah. So resting and also planning the next leg. I'm planning, the way that this is happening is I'm planning sort of 2 months ahead. So right now I have New York to DC planned, and I can say for a fact that I'm going from New York to DC. I've started to reach out to meetings south of DC, so Richmond is certainly on the agenda. And you know, as it goes from Richmond, I would continue to North Carolina. I'm really not sure how that's going to go because there are no Quaker meetings between Richmond and Raleigh. So, you know, support outside of the Society of Friends would be pretty crucial there. July looks likely to be traversing across North Carolina towards the western edge. So Asheville and CeeLo community, which is outside of Asheville as well. And from there,
great meeting. I've been to Asheville meeting numerous times. I love Asheville. Great town, great meeting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to visiting. Actually, I lived there for a year. Didn't meet the Quakers there, but that wasn't a very Quaker town in my life. And from there, I don't know. I think that the destinations there are numerous, or the stops at least from there are numerous. I'd like to visit Atlanta. I'd like to visit the meeting down there. Atlanta is kind of a tough spot because if I were to really consider my health, like considering the fact that it would be about August-ish, I wouldn't want to go further south. I'd probably want to double back and head up maybe through Tennessee, maybe Chattanooga, maybe Murfreesboro. Who knows?
Well, yeah, Murfreesboro is nice that time of year. But
right.
Listen, since you're talking about Tennessee and going into the mountains, I got to put my Buddhist hat on. There's I just actually put I made a little meditation altar in my Pennsylvania house project where I'm building, because I just needed to bring in more meditation energy today and burn incense. And I even put up a picture of this guy, Nichidatsu Fuji. This is the Buddhist who chanted Nam Myoho Renge Kyo and created a whole sect of Nichiren Buddhism. And he started creating these peace pagodas. And guess what? he was also a super famous walker. He walked for nuclear disarmament and led a whole bunch of people in like the 60s and 70s. He lived to be 100. He just died. And it's really uncanny that like I happen to do this today, and we also happen to be doing our podcast today, and you are also doing something in his lineage. So whenever I'm in Asheville and I want to go do something super cool, I go out west. It's only about an hour's drive. It would probably be a day's or two walk in some really beautiful country, Great Smoky Mountains. But there's a Peace Pagoda out there to the west of Asheville, North Carolina. And I think they would love to see you there. The Peace Pagodas could be another great way to like build your network when you're out of Quaker connections and maybe out of ideas. You just, knock and the door shall be opened, and the Buddhists will bring you a bowl.
I love that. I think that's a great idea. And just in the interest of putting it out in the universe, at some point, I would love to walk in Japan as well.
Yes.
A lot of what I'm doing right now is a continuation of work that my grandfather was engaged in the 60s and 70s. He was coerced by the U.S. government, as I consider all soldiers to be, and coerced into murdering civilians in Japan from the air. Ran firebombing missions over Tokyo, and it fucked him up. It just he was scarred for the rest of his life, and as it were, in the 60s and 70s, there was really no way to really process or heal from that trauma. And his best efforts at that were at becoming a peace activist for the rest of his life. So I think there is kind of a loose thread there that I'd like to try and tie a little bit by visiting Tokyo under the auspices of continuing his work, which is certainly what I'm doing now too. But to really literalize it, I think that would be a wonderful thing. But that's a dream right now. For the time being,
I'm inspired to tell you another great story about Nichidatsu Fuji, if you can bear it. But I don't want to interrupt you. Am I interrupting you?
No. Let's hear about him.
Okay. Well, one of the times I did a peace and nonviolence retreat upstate at Daibusatsu Zendo, it was the first time that Azania Francesca Clare, who was an elder in our 15th Street meeting, older African-American woman, has done a lot of work with Alternatives to Violence Project. Anyway, Azania and I had this special prayer because the monks had just said, this crazy walking monk has walked across the Catskills and he has come to the monastery and he wants to join the monastery. And, this is the weekend or the week of your retreat, Sander, show on Hicks. And if it was anybody else, we would just send this kid away, this crazy kid who shows up unannounced. But since you kind of love the outsiders and you love that kind of story, we thought maybe we would see what you thought. And I said, yeah. So me and Azania prayed about it, and we said, yeah, we have to welcome the stranger. And so this guy participated in our retreat, and he was obviously he was a special guy. Maybe he was a little bit neurodivergent or whatever. I got to know him. He's a beautiful man, beautiful young man. I think his name was Giovanni. But he gave me a book by Nichidatsu Fuji all about walking for disarmament. And I wouldn't have known about the Peace Pagodas unless we had prayed and welcomed this stranger into our peace retreat. And then when I met Louisa, I was like, I'm really into the Peace Pagodas in South Carolina and North Tennessee. And she was like, oh, yeah, I'm really into the Peace Pagoda of the one that's outside of Albany. And I was like, oh, that's another thing we have in common. Yeah.
That's great. I will now incorporate that into my planning. It sounds right up my alley. And it how can I ask how long ago this was?
Yeah. You mean how long ago Nichidatsu Fuji lived, or
Yeah.
or yeah. he was born in 1895, and I believe he died in 100 years later. So
Mm,
he lived to be 100 and died in 1995. But
mm.
his sect is still very much alive, and the peace pagodas are still out there. Some of them
Yeah.
have little monasteries and residences, and they're very open.
Mm. Well, it's stories like this that help me to understand that my inkling that this work is something that has lasting resonance is actually true. I would say that a big difference there are a lot of differences between this walk this year and the walk to Washington, obviously. But I think one of the bigger ones is that this isn't something that is doing with the intention of making a change, like making an immediate change in the world. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that there's something that we get so wrapped up in wanting wanting things to be different, like immediately, wanting things to just not be the case, wanting life to go back to what it was before, I don't know, like the pandemic or before Trump or before iPhones or before the internet or before yada yada yada. And there's the fact is that there's just kind of an enormous machine that we're all inside of that is moving very um, it would seem kind of inexorably towards something that we don't want. And there is no immediate change that can happen right now. And there's a feeling that it can, I think, and I could speculate as to why, but I think that things there's a natural pace to change that we have been deprived of kind of systematically in the United States. So there's an understanding of how quickly things change that we've been deprived of. And there's also maybe an understanding of how long certain projects have to go on to actually have an effect. And that's kind of the idea with the PeaceWord interview project is to share an understanding that this is work that began, I mean, with Quakers, it began 400 years ago. The project of resisting authority, and speaking truth to power and all of that, it began in the 17th century. And the work that I'm doing right now is following in that tradition, and I'd like to think it's picking up from work that my grandfather did back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. But it's not something that I expect to see the results of, except for in my own life.
Mm.
And
And that's very
there's
Gandhian, very Mahatma Gandhi. Don't be married to outcomes. Engage in experiments in peace and truth.
right, because I have no idea how this is going to go.
Exactly.
There are a lot of things that could happen that would make it not possible for me to walk anymore. And
Yeah.
far be it for me to mention any of them out loud, but the fact is that like there is there are a tremendous amount of variables here. But more than anything else, that's helping me understand that there are a tremendous amount of variables no matter what. I had a whole trajectory for my life that I was pretty dead set on until the pandemic happened, and then something else entirely had to happen.
Well, what
Uh,
was your tell us your trajectory story. What was your trajectory?
it was construction. It was natural building and sustainable
Oh
construction.
yeah, like the straw bale houses and stuff.
Yeah, and
Cobb,
it's
Cobb, no, Cobb building, Cobb. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it is something that I could certainly jump back into. Um, with enough effort and enough networking and being in the right place. New York City is not really the right place for it.
Yeah.
Uh, but what that particular career path was it was something that sat over a kind of core motivation to live an aligned life, and to make to bring kind of like spiritually resonant containers into the world, and to provide a like a venue for community, and to provide the means for interrelated interconnectivity, that I mentioned earlier. Uh, it's I mean, the thing is that it's also incredibly physically taxing. Like
Yeah,
lifting heavy things all day is very hard to do and destroys my back
no
and all of
kidding.
that.
Try
But
it when you're
really,
55, brother.
I'd rather not. Um, but the thing is that that was I felt incredibly convicted towards making that work. I felt like I did a ton of research, a ton of labor, a ton of skill building, a ton of networking, um, and it kind of it found purchase, it found a toehold during the pandemic, but really so many things were in the process of changing at that point that what was revealed to me that was that I wasn't necessarily trying to build houses for rich people, to be honest, to be blunt.
Yeah,
Right now it's kind of a luxury item to live in a house made out of natural materials.
right.
What I was trying to do was discover a route towards a vibrant community. Um,
Mm.
and there are there's still alignment there. Like if there was an opportunity to find a community of folks who are ready to build and ready to live together and understand how to do it and have experience in doing it, that's one thing. But it's also like a very trendy thing right now is to like live off grid or whatever and live in an intentional community. And it's we're not prepared to, like, for the most part, we're not prepared to do that as a country. I don't think that folks understand all of the work that is involved in living that way. So
So tell us what happened at the pandemic. What took you from your trajectory and plans to what was the kind of the turning point?
I don't know. The turning point was an injury.
Oh,
Yeah, really. Amongst other things, but like it was the fact that I didn't understand quite um how to get back to like baseline every single day, like how to get back to like 100% restoration at the end of every day. So, and I was working in North Carolina, which is incredibly hot in the summertime. Didn't realize how long it took to actually cool down at the end of every day, and so it just like compounded into an injury in my SI joint, essentially just some inflammation that made it hard to move. Um, and that was downstream from a very long period of working physical labor. I lived in Philly for a while, and I did a lot of not just construction but also demolition then, and that was just me throwing myself physically into something as hard as I possibly could, for survival. And I acknowledge that I'm kind of still doing the same thing with this walk, but it's in a much more mindful way, and it's also downstream from having learned a lot about my my capacity and how to manage myself physically and emotionally and spiritually, um, and what my true motivations are really, which is to meet friends.
yeah, that's great. So if people want to support you, how do people support you?
Couple ways. Biggest one is to share about the walk.
Yeah,
And the
viral.
Yeah, it's I think that a lot of this is I mean, I will have an online presence. There will be posts on the Instagram, which is still Walk to Washington.
Hmm.
um, and a lot of the success of this is going to be hinging upon people's awareness of it, so that when I get to a point that I possibly don't have support on a night or a stretch of a week or 2 weeks, I can go online and be like, I'm here. Can you come through with this? And hopefully support will come through. That's the biggest one. If there's a leading or an ability for financial support, there are donate buttons on the website. There's a option for a one-time donation. There's an option for a kind of a subscription donation through Patreon. The Patreon also supports the PeaceWord video project, which is ongoing. There's 12 published now, but there's still
Tell
about.
us, tell us the website URL again. It's walktowashington dot.
It is quakerwalk.org/donate. National Peace Walk 2026, or just QuakerWalk.org. It's all there. It's very easily navigable.
QuakerWalk.org. Great. QuakerWalk.org.
That's correct.
That's good. I don't think we've emphasized that enough. People, you got to support this man. He is hearing the call. He's not asking you to walk across the country, but he's going to do it for whatever reason he's doing it for. QuakerWalk.org is how to support this man, this brother, this friend, the universal friend, Ross Brubeck.
National public friend.
National public friend. That's right. That's right. That's right. I know. I gave a talk on Quaker history, and a lot of people didn't know about the universal friend. I know you in Brooklyn meeting know all about it, because I first heard about the universal friend from people in Brooklyn meeting. But anyway, if you're looking for Quaker history, you want to do a deep dive on who the universal friend was, then Google them, and that's an interesting topic. But I digress. So back to you, QuakerWalk.org, Ross Brubeck. In the short time that we have left, is there anything that we haven't covered that we want to cover?
Probably quite a lot, but without a doubt. But really, if there's any interest in the audience, anyone who hears this, then I'm not hard to reach, and I'm doing this to have conversations with people, and I am carrying a message on the walk, and the message really, I think it really centers around recognizing where there is a rising to action, and responding to it in a way that's supportive, and that exists at all levels. So I'm personally doing that for myself. I'm recognizing what it is that I feel compelled towards right now, and completely setting aside my life to do so, for the period of time that I'll be doing it. But if there are groups that you're a part of, whether they are groups of faith or groups of intention, whatever, that have folks who have a bright light shining from within them that you feel needs support, then I would like to think that this walk is something that would inspire others to be supportive in the way that I've received support so far.
That's right. I've seen that in your materials, and we need to dwell on that for a minute, that you do have a message. Your message is also an openness to interfacing with and listening, deep listening, with other activists and communities of activists. And it's a little bit open-ended, but it's a little bit specific. And I think we've been dwelling maybe too much on the open-endedness of it, but specifically, I got a sense of like a keen interest in changing the world, but not necessarily in the gospel of Ross Brubeck, but more like just kind of like, I'm doing the national walk, and I want to like sit with you and listen to you, all communities of activism. And that'll probably be a wide spectrum, right? Am I getting that correct?
Yeah, and there's a lot that we can learn by paying attention to the way that things change, really.
Yeah.
We want to resist it in many cases because our drive is towards comfort and security, and as we've seen in the United States in particular, not as much as some other parts of the world, but certainly in the United States recently, things change very quickly and without our input, and require us to really reconsider what it is that we thought we were oriented towards.
What is this country oriented towards?
I'd like to say peace, but who knows? It's incredibly, it's incredibly frustrating and heartbreaking to see something that you thought was true proven otherwise. But the thing is that what I've experienced is an understanding that, first of all, change is constant, and if I'm not really countenancing it, I'm not learning what is trying to teach. And that's, certainly just to use the initial walk to Washington as a foil once again for where I'm at now. This is not Walk to Washington Part 2. Although I thought it could have been at some point, it is something else entirely. And what is most important to me is that I continue to walk towards this goal, towards this project, into this project, so that I can continue to experience change at a godly pace. And like, not coincidentally, that pace is about 3 miles an hour.
Yeah. Good. Well, we usually have episodes last about an hour, and that's been about an hour. Does this feel complete for you? Yeah?
Feels good.
Let's invite our audience just to do what we friends do at the end of a meeting. We have meeting for worship, and then we have meetings in committees. And our meetings in committee work, we try to have them have a worshipful vibe. So we start them with a grounding silence. And then usually after an hour or so of all of the drama and give and take, and sometimes some beautiful spirit-led leadings, we usually say, okay, let's have some closing silence. So I know the inner light is strong in everyone, and in you, Ross. And so as we, I struggle to find a way to stop talking. I think the answer is just to stop talking. Ross, thank you so much. This has been one of the greatest episodes of Monks and Punks, and I'm so happy that you were on the show. It really was not just a show, it was really like a meeting in a friendly sense, in a friend's sense. So
yeah, thank you, Senator. This has been I learn more about what it is that I'm doing every time I have a chance to talk about it. So I appreciate the opportunity.
It's like it's like a meeting for worship. You don't know what you'll say, but you learn from what you hear, and what you learn from listening to what you yourself say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great, man. Well, I'll talk to you soon. The launch of the walk is on the 15th of May. Is that right?
The 16th. So we're walking across the Brooklyn Bridge at 9 a.m. Might have already happened by the time this is released, but there will be updates on the website at quakerwalk.org.
Great, Ross. Okay, I'll see you there, buddy.
Thank you.
Bye.
Power hates the truth when it comes from below. This channel is about how people fight power in politics, in religion, in the streets, and in everyday life. We cover democratic socialist races, Palestine, and the genocide in Gaza, Quaker resistance, peace work, and the long tradition of nonviolence that refuses to disappear. Because politics doesn't only live in elections, it lives in housing, in labor, in building things with your hands, in culture, and sometimes in loud, unapologetic punk rock. At the center of this work is the Monks and Punks podcast, a podcast about fighting power with all your heart. If you care about politics, Palestine, peace and nonviolence, housing justice, culture, or building a life that doesn't bow to power, this channel is for you. This is not commentary for spectators, it's for people who still believe ideas and human courage can change things.